The moment you collapsed onto the sand, the performance didn't end. It shifted into something colder, procedural. A man dressed as Mercury, the guide of souls, approached your body and pressed a searing piece of metal into your flesh. Not out of cruelty. This was verification. A final test. If your body reacted, if even the smallest twitch betrayed life, another figure stepped forward, dressed as the ferryman of the dead, and drove a heavy blow into your skull to finish what the arena had started. Only then were you dragged away, through a gate named for the goddess of funerals, into the spoliarium, where everything you had, armor, weapons, identity, was stripped from you. That was the exit process. And strangely, it was the most orderly part of your day, because everything before it had already broken you. This wasn't the version of Gladiators shaped by films or museum plaques. This was the version built from graves, bones, and the detached writings of Romans who described human suffering with the same tone they used for daily life. And if you think you could survive even a single day inside that world, you're about to rethink that. Before you ever stepped into the arena, the building itself was designed to crush you psychologically. Rising from the heart of Rome, it towered over everything around it, a massive structure funded by plunder, built by tens of thousands of enslaved laborers. Stone upon stone, hauled and shaped over nearly a decade. When it was finished, it dominated the skyline in a way few structures ever had. Standing beneath it, looking up, you wouldn't feel awe. You'd feel small, and that was the point. On the days of the games, the place came alive with noise. Tens of thousands of spectators filled the seats, arranged in strict layers of power and privilege. The closer you sat to the sand, the more you mattered. The further you were pushed up, the less you counted. At the very bottom, the elite. At the very top, those who barely registered. And somewhere far below them all, beneath the floor, in darkness, you waited. Because before you came the animals. Cages rose from the depths beneath the arena, lifted by hidden mechanisms, revealing creatures dragged from every corner of the known world. Lions, bears, tigers, crocodiles, exotic, terrified, and doomed. They weren't there for survival. They were there to die. Sometimes they were unleashed against condemned prisoners. Sometimes they were part of staged executions, twisted recreations of myths where the victim never had a chance. By the time your turn came, the sand was already soaked, and now it was your turn. But how did you even get here? You didn't volunteer. Not really. Most men didn't. You were taken, bought, sentenced, or broken into it. Owned by a lanista, a man who dealt in human bodies like commodities. You were trained in a gladiator school, a place that looked like a hybrid between a prison and a professional training facility. You were fed, trained, patched up when injured, not out of care, but because you were an investment. Everything about you was calculated. Your diet wasn't about strength. It was about survival in the arena. You were fed to build a layer of fat over your body, not weakness, protection. That fat absorbed shallow cuts, turned deadly strikes into survivable wounds, and allowed you to bleed just enough to entertain the crowd without dying immediately. You became a spectacle engineered to last. You trained relentlessly. Heavy weapons, heavier shields, movements drilled until instinct replaced fear. Because fear, panic, was what killed you. Not the opponent, not the weapon. The moment you lost control, you were already dead. And then came the night before the fight. A banquet. Food, wine, and a strange sense of quiet. You sat among other men who understood exactly what this meal was. Not a celebration. A farewell. Some of you would not be alive tomorrow. The only question was who? Morning came, and the sounds above you told the story. Screams, roars, the grinding of machinery, death already in progress. Then your name was called. You walked out into the light, through the gate of triumph, into a space filled with tens of thousands of eyes, every one of them waiting, watching, judging. Across from you stood another man, different armor, different weapons, chosen deliberately to create imbalance, tension, spectacle. This wasn't about fairness. It was about entertainment. The fight began. Every movement mattered. Every breath. You weren't just fighting him. You were fighting exhaustion, fear, the heat, the weight of armor, the roar of the crowd pressing into your skull. If you won, you lived. For now, if you lost, you had one option. You raised a finger, a silent plea, and then you listened. Because your fate wasn't yours anymore, it belonged to the crowd. Their voices rose, some shouting for mercy, others demanding blood. And somewhere above them, the man in power made the final decision. Sometimes you were spared. Sometimes you weren't. And even that decision was misunderstood. The famous gesture, the thumb, was never as simple as up or down. In their world, it wasn't approval or rejection. It was a signal, a symbol of the blade, a motion that meant one thing: finish it. If the decision went against you, it ended quickly. A final blow. Clean, deliberate. Then the ritual began again. The verification, the removal, the erasure, and then you were gone. But Rome wasn't finished with you. Your blood could be collected, sold, believed to hold power. Your sweat scraped from your body and turned into products. Even in death, you were still part of the system. Still useful, because that's what the arena was. Not a place, not a monument, a machine. It ran for centuries, consuming lives, entertaining crowds, turning human beings into moments of spectacle. Hundreds of thousands of fighters passed through it, most of them forgotten, most of them dead before they ever had a chance to be remembered. Today, people walk through those same corridors, stand in the same space, take pictures, buy souvenirs, but they don't hear what you would have heard. The noise, the fear, the final silence. And the truth is, if you had been there, if you had stepped onto that sand, if you had faced even a single day inside that system, you wouldn't have lasted.